Early access is kind of almost like a dirty phrase nowadays in the gaming industry. If I say, wow, this is a great early access survival game, some people immediately get turned off. But sometimes, even when many other titles do it poorly, which is definitely the case, one will get it right, and that's Valheim. Valheim is exactly what I just said, an early access survival game on Steam, but this time, for an abundance of reasons, it has been turned into something truly incredible that is worth so much more than its price tag. I am honestly baffled, impressed, and thankful. Valheim is simultaneously very simple, but through effective use of procedural generation, it becomes infinitely complex. You, the player, are a Viking in a massive procedurally generated world that exists beneath the Tree of Life, Yggdrasil. I believe I'm pronouncing that properly. This world is randomly composed of 5 different biomes: meadows, dark forests, mountains, swamps, and oceans. Your job is to explore this enormous world, sail to new islands, discover bosses, of which there are 5, I believe, with unique designs and abilities, while upgrading your home, your items, your production equipment, everything really as you go. The concept of a survival game is not really different this time around. It's the same loop that most people will probably already understand very well, where you start with bad tools and weapons, slowly collecting stronger and better materials, refining them, and eventually becoming a Viking champion. However, the scope of this world, the fact that you can load up over and over and over into entirely new versions of it, and the pacing by which you progress with interspersed invasions, bosses, and general exploration, all combine to create something that is greater than its individual components. Valheim has one very critical, easily overlooked success. It creates a sense of adventure that can span any amount of time and be replicated very easily, despite seeming, on the surface at least, to be a somewhat repetitive cycle. There is a tried and true level of satisfaction to the process of adventuring in video games. The idea of campaigns or missions display a rudimentary system in which players undertake a task, then complete it and garner various rewards. That system is something so obvious and so common, easily, it's the most common thing in the entire industry, I would say, we often overlook it entirely. However, Valheim has taken this simple concept and perfectly crafted a dynamic where the journeys you take away from your home, whatever that may be, whenever you do it, can be pushed to nearly any length of time, for any reason, but still manage to seem like a grand world exploration that consistently allows for maximum freedom while still completing the loop of task, completion, reward. The scale of this world comes into play very nicely here, because unlike many other survival titles where the only barrier to progression is further materials, Valheim is punctuated by epic boss encounters, which then tie into your ability to create new items or harvest new items and build new structures. This leads the player through the world, but the ways in which you discover or locate another boss are done so precisely and so effectively, you barely even notice that there is a clearly defined chain of events which guide you through the game. In the beginning, you will feel a sense of dread and anticipation from the simplest, shortest excursions, but as your power grows, you can journey faster and farther. Obviously, that's how a survival game always works. Eventually, you will be sailing the seas in a Viking longboat, battling sea serpents, and finding new islands to explore and harvest resources from. This exploration strikes a perfect balance of time and reward, while also eliminating the tedium of unnecessary walking. What I mean by this is that there are portals. Now, this is very important here. You build 2, you connect them, and you can go back and forth between these locations, but not if you are carrying certain items, primarily metal ore. This might seem simple, but it's incredibly effective because you are able to teleport around gathering the tedious materials in an extremely time-efficient way, but as soon as you require metal, arguably the most important item chain in the entire game, you must actually physically travel the distance home. That means sailing, running, etc., and the sense of urgency to getting these critical materials back to your base fulfills that crucial step of anticipation and reward, which will be replicated over and over again. Now, despite the fact that I have called certain activities tedious, like gathering specific materials at times, that's not entirely true, because Valheim has done a nearly perfect job of integrating old and new materials together for various different progression items, so that no matter what you pick up, like literally no matter what you pick up ever, it's pretty much always useful in some capacity, no matter what level you're at, no matter what materials you typically are using for gear. Basically, wherever you are in the game, almost everything is still useful. Unlike many other survival games where you go from one tier of resources to the next, often leaving the previous items in a state of total or complete obsolescence, Valheim will have you finding value in pretty much any item you pick up. Like, literally ever. That's no small thing, because when a world like this can be procedurally generated and the world is now filled with things that retain value and usefulness beyond what other survival games typically offer, it pushes a game from being simply good to being absolutely great. And all of that for $20. Sadly, as of right now, there are no plans to bring this game to console. That's not to say it won't happen, but there are no firm plans that I'm aware of, and it can only be played on PC at the moment on Steam. But this title has found meteoric success, which almost necessitates that they strongly consider porting it to console at some point in the future. Now, most of this has been a sort of rough top-down praise-driven look at the game, but now I want to focus in on the multiplayer aspect. Since Valheim is procedurally generated, again, and it's just so wonderfully used here, it's just incredible, and seed-based, basically there's a seed key and you put that in, it generates a world based on that key, you are able to load into other players' worlds, or keep creating new ones of your own. Here's the most important thing. When you do this, when you world hop, if you will, you maintain your character and the gear that they wear, as well as the inventory that they carry. This means that you can go into a friend's world and help them gather resources, keeping some for yourself to ultimately bring back home. You can go into other worlds and fight enemy players who have their PvP damage turned on, raid their bases, and do all the typical PvP survival game things, but the developers have managed to create an atmosphere of exploration and cooperation that transcends even just one world. You can operate multiple bases yourself in multiple different procedurally generated universes, carrying supplies between them like an interdimensional pack mule. And this kind of insane content scope, like it really is incredible, all based on the procedural generation, which again is used phenomenally well, and a framework where basically everything you gather is valuable in some way at any point in the game, for some purpose or another, creates a simply unbelievable amount of engagement that will lead to many, many thousands of hours for those that enjoy the material. Even more specific, and perhaps one of the greatest quality of life decisions I've ever seen in a game like this, when you destroy a previously built item, you get all the materials back, like all of them. In many games, destroying something that you have built or deconstructing it will leave you with less than you put in, which means to replace it or rebuild it, you have to make up the difference. This is done to create a sense of investment and push the player to care about what they build and be specific or deliberate in the process. It creates loss if you tear stuff down or you get attacked. Valheim takes a very different approach and allows you to tear down and rebuild your structures for free simply by removing and replacing the built item with no penalty. That might seem simple or very unimportant to some people, but it's a monumental convenience for those that enjoy building and crafting bases, which is a lot of what a survival game is all about, because it means infinite flexibility to improve and expand, or relocate existing structures. Everything you have gathered and invested into your base will be yours kind of forever. To a certain extent. If someone comes and steals it in PvP, no. If you lose track of it or just leave it somewhere in the world and forget, also no. But if you build a base and tear it all down, you can build the exact same base again, or just improve it or rearrange it, because you have lost nothing. There's a sense of permanence here that doesn't exist in many other games. Not only do you get value from your long journeys to distant islands to collect iron or silver, whatever it is, but once you have it and have used it to expand your structures and your base, it's going to stay there in raw resource form at the very least, even through catastrophic attacks and failures to defend your home. The inconvenience of having to manage those resources and reconstruct everything will certainly exist, and you can move your base, but it's a lot of tedium. You have to tear it all down and move all the resources and carry it pack mule style and rebuild it, whatever. But you really only ever build up and are never actually torn down to a point where you lose valuable items. All you lose is just the time to rearrange and place them. Combine this with an invasion system of sorts, where you'll be attacked sometimes at night by scaling mobs of enemies with different archetypes, and you have a system that creates danger, reward, and mitigated loss all at the same time. It's a pretty potent combination here, and when you look at this next to all the other decisions the development team have made, as well as the overall concept and design of the game, you see a $20 indie title that knocks it out of the park and rightly deserves a concurrent player count approaching 400,000 on Steam. In terms of features, it has been said that the game is about 75% complete, meaning another quarter of the intended features aren't even in the game yet. And content-wise, it's about 50% complete. That means 5 bosses might very well become 10. It means that 5 biomes might become more as well. And the current scope of this title being expanded by that large a margin over the next year or so, who knows how long, would make it one of the biggest games I have ever seen for one of the cheapest price tags, with painstakingly crafted gameplay so that the player receives maximum enjoyment and minimal frustration. Everything down to even the food system is designed to give benefits, not punishments. The 3-slot food item bar lets you increase your maximum health and regeneration, among other things, but you don't starve if you fail to eat or drink enough over time. The quality of the food affects the bonuses, but in the end, you can spend hours upon hours crafting and not go through all your food supplies because of tedious, persistent requirements. Also, your stamina bar is tied to food as well. So, despite the fact that there are traditional skill levels like woodcutting or running or archery, your basic functional ability to move throughout the world and survive is not tied to some arbitrary stat point that requires grinding to improve. There is no friction here in terms of what stops you from having fun. Those barriers simply don't exist. Sure, it's difficult to get certain items and armor because you need frost resistance potions, for example, to get the silver, to then get the wolf armor that lets you survive in the cold without the potions, effectively making it so that the best way to conquer or even survive in a particular biome, mountains, requires items from within that biome itself. But even then, something that I would consider an oversight in many other games, it's not even a problem because you can build fires in that region, have food regeneration, get bonfires even, craft the potions, or any number of solutions that allow you to tackle the game world in a diverse set of ways. Point is, you can jump into a friend's world and join their adventure easily, perfectly, seamlessly, in seconds. You can progress through your own massive world with very little to ever get in the way and frustrate you or degrade the overall experience. And all of that for a low price tag in an early access game from indie developers. It's incredible. Valheim is probably my favorite game that has launched in the past 12 months. No joke. It's amazing. Every single person with even a shred of interest should buy it, play it, and support it. There is a ton of content I have not done yet, even though I've played quite a bit. I haven't killed all the bosses yet. I haven't crafted all the legendary items or the different unique things that you can find, and I don't normally build in games even or care about that kind of activity like base building or organization, but here I've spent like at least 12 hours in the past couple days simply building out a great hall for me and my friends with like every little intricate detail I can think of, and I'm still working on it. I'm putting a moat around it. It's just incredible. I'm blown away. The game is a true testament to why indie developers are so important and so worthy of our support. But that's it. If you want support, please consider checking out Odyssey. It's a YouTube platform alternative. My entire content library is over there, and it is super beneficial to me if you watch on that website because they treat their creators very well. There's a link down below. You click that, you sign up, you watch my content there. Super beneficial for me and any other creator that you support on that platform. Also, locals, you can support for $5 a month, and I post ad-free videos and audio podcast versions on that platform as well to monthly supporters. Another gaming YouTuber to check out, merch, social media, etc., etc. All the links, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. Valheim is incredible. Definitely go play it, and have a nice night.